In this video tutorial, we will explain what tax receipts are and how you can find them. This information is specifically made for Dalhousie University International students who are currently living in Canada. To do a tax return, you need to collect specific documents. You should collect these documents before you start using the tax software. Please ensure you have collected all your documents before you schedule an appointment for completing your tax return. You can find a full list of tax documents on the International Centre website. Go to dal.ca/international center, then click Current Students in the navigation, then click Working and Finances, click Tax Information, and then click Collect Your Tax Receipts and Information. A direct link is available in the description box below. Please note that your tax returns are done for the year that has passed. In the current year, you do a tax return for the previous year. So right now we are in 2021, so our tax returns are for the year 2020. This is important because your tax receipts will be 2020 receipts. So the first thing you need is a social insurance number. You already have a social insurance number if you are working and you have a T4. Social insurance numbers, or SINs or SINs, allow you to submit a tax return online. To get a social insurance number, you can apply online or by mail. You can Google apply for a social insurance number, or there's a direct link in the description box below. Your social insurance number will be printed on the social insurance number letter that you will receive from Service Canada. Again, if you're already working, you have a social insurance number, and you can find your social insurance number on your T4 receipt if you had a job. The next thing you're going to need is the date you entered Canada. You will need this if this is your first time doing a tax return. If you have submitted tax returns in the past, you most likely have already entered the date that you first entered Canada, so you won't need to do this again. But if this is your first time doing a tax return, you will need to enter that date. You can find that date on your very first study permit in the Issue Date section. Or you can find that date in your passport. If you look for your passport and find your entry stamp, that is the stamp you received when you first entered Canada as a student, the date will be included there. You will also need the income earned before you entered Canada. This is specific to those of you who are doing your tax return for the very first time. The income earned before you entered Canada should be the total income you earned in the country that you were living in before you came to Canada. So if you never had a job in the country that you were living in, then the amount is zero. But if you did have a job before coming to Canada, you would need to calculate the payment using your job receipts, pay slips, and convert it to Canadian dollars. For example, let's say I was in my home country of Nigeria before coming to Canada. If I was earning any money in Nigeria, I would have to convert it from my Nigerian currency into Canadian dollars and enter this amount. Now we're getting into the tax receipts that are issued. The first you're going to need to know about is the T2202, formerly known as the T2202A. This is a receipt showing the amount of tuition that you have paid to your school. For Dalhousie students, the T2202 is available on their Dal Online. You can access it by logging into Dal Online, click Web for Students, click on Canada Tax Forms, and then click T2202A Tax Credit Forms. The next screen allows you to select the year. So you want to select 2020, and then you want to click the link that says Open the printable version. Your T2202 tax receipts will be available in late February or early March. If you are attending a language school, then your tuition receipt will come directly from your language school. Please contact them to find out how you can get your receipt. The next tax receipt is the T4 that we mentioned earlier. The T4 is specific for people who are working. If you had a job, your employer should have issued you a T4. If you have not received your T4 from your employer, you may contact them. Most employers send the T4 to their employees' mailing address. If you change your address, then you need to let your employer know. If your employer is Dalhousie University, you can find your T4 on Dal Online. Log into Dal Online, click Employee Dashboard, click on Taxes, then Slips for Income Tax Return. You will need to select the year, so select the tax year 2020 from the drop-down menu and click T4 Statement of Remuneration Paid. Then you want to make sure you click on the printable version. Please ensure that you do all you can to get your T4 from your employer. Don't be afraid to ask your employer if you have not yet received your T4. Employers are responsible for issuing T4s to all their employees. It is a government requirement. Please note that accumulated pay stubs cannot be used with the tax software. You must have a T4. The next receipt is the T4A. This receipt is issued to anyone who had a scholarship, bursary, grant, or fellowship from Dalhousie University. You can find your Dalhousie University T4A in the same place where you found your T2202. You log into Dal Online, click Web for Students, click on Canada Tax Forms, and then T4A Tax Credit Forms. You will need to select the year from the drop-down menu, so select 2020 and open the printable version. Please note that the T4A is only available if you received a scholarship, bursary, grant, or fellowship. If you never received any of these, then you won't have a T4A. Now, if you received a Canada Student Recovery Benefit or any of the benefits that were issued as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, you were probably sent a T4A form to your mailing address. Please make sure that you have your T4A if you received any of these benefits. You will also need your bank information to complete the tax software. This will allow any of your refunds or benefit payments to be issued directly to your bank account. To do this, you will need your bank account number, your bank institution number, and this is a 3-digit number, your bank transit number, which is also known as the branch number, and this is a 5-digit number. If you don't know what these numbers are, you can contact your bank branch directly. Please note that the number on your debit or credit card is not the same as your bank account number, institution number, and transit or branch number. Please ensure that you have the correct numbers so as to make sure that the money is deposited safely into your bank account. Next receipt that you may have is a T5. T5 tax receipts are issued if someone earned interest on investments and deposit. If you're not sure if you're supposed to have a T5, contact your bank branch to ask. T5s are usually sent to your mailing address, or if you signed up for your bank's online banking, it could be issued in a portal on your online banking. Next, you may have medical receipts for medical expenses in the year 2020. These would be medical receipts for huge medical expenses and expenses not covered by insurance. You'd receive these receipts from your doctor's office, health clinic, hospital, pharmacy, etc., wherever it was that you made the purchase for that medical expense. Please note the receipts must be expenses in the year 2020. Ensure your receipts have a date on them. If you've lost Your medical receipts, you can contact the organization where you paid for the expense and ask them for a copy. Please note that not all organizations may be able to give you a copy. Also, make sure that the receipts you're using were for things not covered by your insurance, and that includes the DAL International Student Health Plan or the DSU Health and Dental Plan. You may have donated to a charitable organization like the Red Cross or Feed Nova Scotia or a religious organization, and that organization issued you a receipt confirming your contribution. This is known as a charitable donation receipt, and you can enter the amounts on that receipt into your tax return. Again, this receipt is only for those who donated to charitable organizations. If you have a child, you may have childcare receipts. If you've done tax returns in the past, the Government of Canada's Canada Revenue Agency may have sent you an RC-62 receipt. If you are paying a caregiver for childcare services, your caregiver can also issue you a childcare service receipt. You can also get receipts from day nursery schools and daycare centers. You can also receive receipts from other educational institutions for the part of the fees that relate to childcare services. Day camps and day sports schools, where the primary goal of the camp is to care for children, an institution offering a sports study program is not a sports school. Please be aware of this. You can also get receipts from boarding schools, overnight sports schools, or camps where lodging is involved. If you are not sure what your childcare receipts are, you can click the link in the description below for more information. You may be married or in a common law relationship. If so, you will also have to do a tax return for your spouse or partner at the same time you are doing your tax return. Your spouse should have some or all of the documents that we mentioned earlier. Your spouse should have a social insurance number, or in some cases, your spouse may have an individual tax number. An individual tax number is a number that is issued to someone who needs to do a tax return but may not necessarily be a resident of Canada. Please note that with an individual tax number known as the ITN, you may not be able to submit the spouse tax return online and may have to print it out and send it by mail. If your spouse is not in Canada with you, you will still need to complete a tax return for them. You will need their name, date of birth, country of residence, and the income they earned between January 1st and December 31st of the year 2020. If you have filed taxes in previous years, the Canada Revenue Agency probably sent you a notice of assessment. If you have an online account, the notice of assessment will be deposited there. But if you did not set up an online CRA account, your notice of assessment would have been sent to your mailing address. The notice of assessment is a report confirming that your tax return was processed. It also contains the unused tuition and education amounts from your previous tax returns. It's very important that you use the unused tuition and education amounts found on the notice of assessment and include it on the tax return that you are doing this year. Now, you may have been living in Canada for several years and you never did a tax return. In that case, you will need to collect all the tax receipts that were mentioned earlier for the previous years. So, for example, if you arrived in Canada in the year 2018 and have never done a tax return, you would need to go and get all your tax receipts from 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2020. Here are a few tips from the Canada Revenue Agency as it relates to your tax receipts and other documents. You're advised to keep all your tax documents for at least 6 years. For example, if you are filing for the 2020 tax year, you have to keep your documents for 2020 as well as 2019, 2018, 2017, 2016, and 2015. If you claimed expenses, deductions, or tax credits, keep all your receipts and any related documents in case the Canada Revenue Agency asks to see them at a later date. You can keep your tax documents in a special envelope, or you can keep it in a box. If your documents are soft copies, you can create a folder on your computer where you can store all your tax receipts. Make sure that this folder is only accessible to you, so you may want to make sure that it's password protected. Regardless of whether you choose to save your tax documents on your computer or in an envelope or a folder or in a box, you want to make sure that it's safe and accessible only to you. We strongly recommend that you collect your documents 1 to 2 days before your appointment. This is because there are limited appointments available, and you don't want to spend your appointment time looking for your documents. If you don't have everything ready, your appointment time may run out before your tax return is completed and submitted. Then you would have lost your opportunity at the Dalhousie International Centre Community Volunteer Income Tax, also known as CVITP, tax clinics, and you might need to access another CVITP clinic to complete your tax return. So in order to make sure that your time is well spent, try to collect your tax documents before your appointment happens. You can download your tax receipts from Dal Online and save them in a folder on your desktop. Or you could take your paper receipts in a folder or envelope and label them Tax Forms 2020. That way, they're all in one place for when you're ready to use them to fill in the tax software. This brings us to the end of this tax tutorial video. In the next video, we will cover how to set up a U-File account. A U-File is the software that we recommend using for submitting your tax return. You can find more tax tutorial videos on the International Centre website, the DAL Student Life YouTube channel, or the International Centre Microsoft Streams channel. More helpful links are included in the description box below. Thank you for watching, and we hope this video was helpful.